Okay, this is Winter 15 question paper 3. And in this question, I've already done the first few questions in here. So I'm just going to do from question 11 down, just to demonstrate how you would test out your data, your model, how you would test it out using test data. This is the only question paper I've seen that actually does this. And you may be asked to do something similar in your exam. So this is what you would do. So first of all, it says formulae will be entered in steps 11 and 12. These will not produce results until test data is entered into F4. So I'll just show you the spreadsheet. So here's our spreadsheet. This is all to do with people's pay, employees' pay. Basically, I'll just explain what's happening. So we've got the different employees, we've got a pay code for each employee, and I've already created a lookup function to extract the correct pay rate according to each employee's pay code. So every employee gets paid a slightly different rate according to their code, and that would be linked to how many hours they do and whether they're permanent or temporary. So all that information's in here. So here I just use my lookup to calculate for each person what their rate should be to match their pay code. And then you have, so that's those, and then you have the contract hours. These are the hours that they're supposed to work every week. This is on a weekly basis. As you can see, it says week 14. So that's how we know this is in a week. This is how much, this is the payroll for a week. So this person, Hernandez, should be working 35 hours a week, and so on. All the other employees' hours are there. The hours worked will be how much they actually have worked for this week. And then we're going to use a formula to calculate how much they should be paid based on what they actually did, how many hours they actually worked. And then we need to create another formula to find out if they did any overtime or not. So that would be if their hours worked is greater than their contract hours. That means they get overtime pay because they've worked more than they need, well, more than they're contracted to. So that's what that means. And then we'll just add up the totals as well. Okay, now in this question we've been told that we're going to leave this column blank. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight this column in green. Okay, so we're leaving this blank. This is the column that we're going to type in our test data into to see if these formulas here work, and you'll see how it works in a moment. So I'm just going to go back to the question. So it says in G4, enter a formula to calculate the pay for this employee using their pay rate and hours worked. Okay, so we're going to put this in G4. So I need to do a formula to do that. So pay rate and hours worked. Okay, so in G4, which is here. So I'm now going, so here's pay rate, hours work is obviously blank, and I've told you that that will stay blank. Sometimes you create formulas and there isn't a value, sometimes with blank values. This is so that we can enter data in later. The formula is still correct, but it just means that we can actually, sometimes it's a working model that you're using over time, and sometimes values change, but the formula will always stay the same. So I'm just going to type the formula in as it should be. So it's just equals, and we're just multiplying their pay rate by their hours worked. Okay. And if I just press enter, so obviously there's nothing in there because they haven't got any hours worked in here yet. Okay, but that's what we're supposed to do. So I've now done that. Oops. I'll just highlight that. Then it says select appropriate data that you can enter into F4 to test the formula. So we're now going to test whether this formula's worked or not. It says enter the data that we've chosen in the data chosen column in the test table of the evidence document. So basically in F4 I'm going to write in some hours worked for this person and see if the pay calculates correctly. So I'll just keep it simple. I'll just put 10 hours. He's worked 10 hours in there. So I choose that he's going to work 10 hours. So 10. Okay, so I want to see if that gives me the correct result. Okay, so I've now done that. So I've done that now. Then it says record in the expected column of my test table the value I expect to see. Okay, so if his pay rate is 9 and he's worked 10 hours, then obviously his pay will be $90. So that's what I expect to see. That's what should be there if this formula is correct. So I'm going to put 90 in there, and I think I'll put the dollar symbol in as well, just to make that correct. Okay, so it should, so that's what I expect. That would mean that my formula is correct. So I've done that as well. Then it says enter your test data into F4 and record the result in the actual column of your test table. So I'm now going to put the test data. So from here, this is the test data, the value 10. I'm now going to put that into F4 and see what happens. So I'll type that in and press enter. And now you can see that his pay has been calculated, because what Excel does is, even if the cell's empty, it will always look back into that cell to see what the contents is. That's why we use cell references, so that we can, whatever the contents of that cell is, it will just recalculate the formula and update it according to whatever new value's been put in. So that's now the actual is 90. So I'm just going to copy this. Okay, so that now tells me that my formula works correctly, because the expected and the actual are the same, and that's what we're looking for. If they were different, then our formula is incorrect, and we'd need to make some changes to our spreadsheet model. That's the whole point of testing. So that's the first test done. And then it says in H4, we're going to enter a formula to display the word yes if the hours worked are greater than the contract hours. Display the word no if the hours worked are the same as the contract hours, or display the words incomplete if the hours worked are less than the contract hours. So this is an if statement here. It's going to be nested because we've got 3 possible outcomes there. So we need to have some kind of nested function, because we've got more than 2 outcomes. And 2 actual conditions. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. So that goes in this one now. So I'm now going to put in, I'll use the effects button, the if. Okay, so we're now testing whether F4 is, and let's just go back to the question. So F4 is greater than the contract hours. Okay, so greater than, and the contract hours are here. Okay. And then if that's true, then that person would have worked overtime. If their hours worked, if this value here is more than this one, then this should say yes. That's what the spreadsheet, that's what the question's telling us. Okay. Now we need to put in another if, because we still have another 2 conditions. So if, and this time we're looking at F4 again. So F4 and less than E4. And if F4 is less than E4, then it should say incomplete. And then if not, then no. Okay, so the false, so we can have just a false statement. So incomplete. Yeah. You've got to make sure these are in quotes as well. Otherwise you might get an error. I'll just put my quotations in. And then no. Okay, so anything other than these 2 conditions. So if F4 is greater than, it will be yes. If it's less than, it will be no. That still leaves us with anything that's the same as F4. So that's why we don't need another if statement for the no, because we've still got that value available to put a condition or an outcome to. So I'm just going to put no in quotes as well. Okay, and then put in value. Okay, so that's telling me that that's incomplete, because that person has not worked their contract hours yet. Yeah. So what I need to do is, I'm just going to change this back to nothing. I'll just remove that. Okay, and then just copy that formula down. Okay, it doesn't matter that they're all the same, because we're going to do a test on this to see whether each one of them works properly, each condition works. Okay, so we've done that now. Oops. Let's highlight this. Okay, then it says select 3 items of appropriate data that you can enter in F4 to test the formula. Enter this in the data chosen column of the test table. So we're testing three different things here. We want to see that the yes condition works, the no condition works, and the incomplete condition works. So the first one I'm going to put in for my test data is maybe something that's greater than the contract hours. And if I'm doing it for Hernandez in this row, contract hours are 35. So my first test is going to be 38, yeah? And then my next one will be, let me just go back to my test. Okay, so the next one will be 35 because we want to see if our no condition works. Yeah, so that should match the contract hours, and then the next one should be less than the contract hours, so I'll just put 20 in there. Okay, and then what we expect as our output in the cell, let me just go back to the question so you can see how I'm doing this. So I've done that now. I've put in the appropriate data. So that's what appropriate means. It means you have to select data that's going to give you the three different results you're looking for. Okay, so if I just fill that in, then in the expected column we need to put in what we expect to see in each of those three different bits of test data. So I'm going to go ahead. So if I've got 38 in the hours worked, I expect for my result in H4 to be yes, okay, because that person would have done above their contract hours. This one for 35 here, if this is 35, it's the same, so it would just say no, okay, because that's the same. And then 20 is obviously less than their contract hours, which was 35, so that should be incomplete. Okay, so if we just look back at the question here, it tells you, yeah, it will display yes if the hours are greater, no if the hours are the same, and incomplete if the hours are less. So that matches what we've done here. Okay, if the contract hours are 35. Okay, so you've got to look at the actual data you're trying to compare to in your test. Alright, so now we need to actually test this out. So the question says, in our expected, so we've done our expected column, and now it's asking for us to enter each item of test data into F4 and record the result in the actual column. So look at my test data. The first test data is 38, and I should be expecting yes. So let's see what happens. So I type 38, press enter. Okay, and it gives us yes, so that worked. Okay, so my actual matches my expected there, so I'll just copy that over. Okay, and then I need to do the next one, which is 35, so I'm just changing this to 35. And it now says no, so that also matches. Okay, so I can copy this also. And then the next data I've chosen is 20, so let's just see if that works. Okay, and that says incomplete, okay, which is what we expected also. So I've now tested my formula and it does work as it should. So I've tested it with, you could test it with abnormal data and see what the outcome is, but it's best to test the data within the boundaries there. So that's how to do the testing. I will complete the rest of this question as well, just in case you're curious about how to do the rest of this. So okay, so it says replicate the formulas entered for all employees. I've already done that, and it says apply appropriate formatting to all cells. So let's just have a look at the spreadsheet. So let me just remove that. So I still don't need anything in there. So I've got my pay rate in dollars, my pays in dollars. This is fine. I just need to widen my columns a little bit. The pay rate here should also be in dollars, because the question actually told us at the beginning, which you didn't see, that all currency values should be in dollars with 2 decimal places. Just go back down here. So that's correct. And then it says in G6, enter a function to calculate the total wage bill for the week. Okay, so I'm just going to, basically I'm adding, so equals sum, and it's going to add these together. Obviously the result is still 0 because we don't have any pays in there, which is fine. The examiner is looking at your formulas, not at the values at this point. So then it says enter these details into your header and save and print your spreadsheet showing the values. So you know how to do this already. I'm just going to put details here. just for time's sake, because you know how to do that. I'll change the view back. Okay, and then it says print showing the values. So if I just go to print preview, okay, so it will just be printed as is. Oh, let me just remove the shading from here. Just make sure I've done all my formulas correctly. Yep. Okay, so when you print, obviously always preview your work. So that's what I'd be printing. I'm showing my values at this point. Okay, and then it says that we need to enter this data into the hours work column. So obviously now our spreadsheet will be updated and we will have, our formula should show us all the values that should be there. So I need to just type these in. So Hernando and Castro are both 35, then 10 and 35. Oops. 5. So you can see them updating as I'm typing. There, 21, 12, 37, 0. Oh, 37 and 0. Okay, 37. I'm just going to reduce this. This is really annoying. Fortunately for you, you'll be able to just move this. You'll be able to have this will be printed out, so you don't have to worry about silly stuff like this. So that should be 27. Just minimize this as well. That should be 37. Obviously, you've got to make sure this is typed in correctly. It should be correct. That's what I meant to say. So 7, 42, and 35. Okay, so just check that that's correct. And then my totals, I need to adjust the column for here because you can see it's represented by hashes at the moment. I'm just going to go back to the question and maximize it and just see exactly what it's asking for here. So it says save and print the spreadsheet showing the formula. Show row and column headings are displayed as well. So I'm just going to maximize this. I need to widen this column here so I can see the formulas properly. Obviously, I need to make some adjustments to make that fit on one page. Does it tell me what orientation I should be using? It doesn't. So I'm just going to set this to landscape, just so all my formulas are showing as they should be. Okay. So I'll set this to portrait landscape first. Okay, so that will fit on a page. And I need to go to formulas and show formulas. So I'll obviously adjust my columns. Okay, so we're going to have to make some further adjustments in our print preview to make sure this is all fully visible. So print preview. Okay, so I'm just going to go to page setup and I'm going to reduce this a little bit. Okay, so I need to just reduce it a bit more, maybe to 70. Okay, there we go. So it's all on the page and it's still clear enough to see. I need to go into page setup and go to sheet because I need to put my row and column headings in as well. So that should be there too. And then I'd be ready to print that out. So that would be that print out. And then it says print the spreadsheet showing the values. So I would then close this, untick here. And then I would need to print this. So obviously I need to adjust these again and make sure all of the headings, the column headings are showing because you will lose marks if they're not visible as well. And then that would be printed also. So like this, I'm not sure if you had to have the row and column headings. It doesn't say anything about removing them, so that's fine. And then the next question, it says in row 1, change week 14 so that it becomes week 15. So I'm going to close this. Okay, and then the question then asks me to replace with this data now. So you're kind of testing out the model again actually here. So the examiner is going to see 2 different sets of data for 2 different weeks. So now we're doing week 15. So Hernandez did 36, then we've got 35, then 12. 35 and 21 and 12, 37 and 38, and 12 and 7 and 42 and 24. Okay, so now my values are different, and I'll just go back to the question. And now it says print the spreadsheet showing the values. So exactly the same thing, just making sure your row and column header, everything's visible basically. So we would print this also as it is like this. And then the question says sort the employee's data into ascending order of employee name. Okay, so okay, so now it's in ascending order of employee's name, and I need to print that as well. So it's just showing the values. So I would just, I think I have to print the whole spreadsheet. So again, print preview, and you would print it like that. That's that one. And then it says hide rows 17 to 27. So we'll hide those. Right, and then it says search the data to extract only employees who have worked overtime and have a pay code starting with F. Okay, and it says show evidence of your methods in your evidence. So those that have worked overtime, so we're just going to add some filtering. So overtime should be set to yes, because they have worked overtime. Okay, and then we want to find those that have a pay code, F in their pay code. So I'm just going to click on this filter here, and does it say contains? Let me have a look. Starting with, okay, so one pay code begins with F. Okay, oh, and we need to do screenshots of these, so I'll just do a screenshot of this one and put that in my evidence, and I need a screenshot of the other one as well. It just should be in here. Okay, and then I'll move that down in a minute. And the other one I had to do as well was pay code. Okay, so I'll show you that as well. So I can just show it like this. So I'll just take a screenshot again. Okay, so those are both methods that I've used in there. And then I'll just go back to the question. So we had to print that as well. Okay, so that was it. So I'll just show you how to print this. Okay, so you'd be printing this as well. And that's it. So that's what you would do. So that's how to test your model. The main objective of this video is to show you how to do the testing, how to enter your test data into your table, and how to write the expected and actual outcomes in there. So that's that.